Hello everyone, in today's episode of the 1 Year Life Challenge, I'm going to talk about fear and 8 steps of getting over fear so you can live your true life. Hello everyone, today we're talking about that big topic fear, red lights, bang bang, the sort of stuff that stops you from doing the things necessary. I'm going to begin with a quote on this subject that's really helpful, and that quote is, "Fear keeps us focused on the past or worried about the future. If we can acknowledge our fear, we can realize that right now we are okay. Right now, today, we are still alive and our bodies are still working marvelously. Our eyes can still see the beautiful sky. Our ears can still hear the voices of our loved ones." Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen master from Vietnam, I believe. It's so true. Quite often we build these fears into, worse than death. Quite often if you're breathing, like Sia's got that song, "I'm alive, I'm still breathing," and like she's saying, yeah, I've been through some tough stuff, but I'm breathing, so it's all okay. It's something really, really important to recognize. I remember the quote, I think it's from Roosevelt, that fear kills more people than death, because death kills just once, but fear kills over and over again, killing your soul. And isn't that so true? My great friend Les Brown used to always say is that fear quite often kills people at 25, but we don't bury them until they're 75. And isn't it true? You see kids just rush out into rivers and cold oceans and jump in without fear, really enjoy themselves, embrace themselves. They never really get as hurt as much as anyone thinks. They put bloody dirt in their mouth and they don't get sick. And it's just our fears as parents quite often we put on top of them that really turns them into neurotic people. You look at people like Woody Allen, or you look at Howard Hughes, whose mother used to scrub him with soap because she was worried about him getting sick. He became, neurotic and used to scrub himself for hours and hours every day to get these germs off him that he'd been instilled the fear of from his mother, which isn't normal. These fears aren't normal, and they stop us from just being ourselves and exploring this incredible world we have. My personal story was the fear of not being good enough, or the fear of really not having enough money or not being able to get the things that I wanted stopped me from doing what I really love, which is this video series and helping, connecting, and ending suffering within individuals. And that fear was imagined. It never really existed. It only existed in my mind. And being able to defeat that fear showed me the path that fear is really like a waterfall. It was once explained to me that fear is like a waterfall. It looks very solid and looks very imposing, but when you walk through, you notice that it was completely transparent and powerless, and when you end up on the other side, there's always something beautiful and magical, which is true. The other side of the waterfall is always really cool, the rocks and the stalactites and things like that. So, how do we overcome fear? Well, there's 8 steps. Now, the first step is to be present, because fear is almost always, it is always in thoughts of things that have happened in the past or worries of the future. In the present moment, unless you have a train hurtling at you, and the only fear that could be is what happens to me after I get hit by the train, which is more future thinking, fear disappears very quickly. Connect with your breath and be present, and the fear will disappear because it's not real, it has no weight, it doesn't really exist outside of your mind, and that's why we talk so much about controlling the mind in this series. Number 2, if you're still worried, think about the worst case scenario. I was talking to someone recently and they were worried about re-entering a country. And they're like, I'm really worried about it. So what's the worst thing that can happen? They go, well, they'd probably send me back. Like, okay, so they sent you back. How bad's that? I go, well, it's not that bad. I guess I could just... And you realise that they hadn't even thought about the fear. They just allowed the fear to ruminate and become its own sort of, train in the head, when ultimately, the worst case scenario wasn't that bad. If the worst case scenario is not that you're going to die, then really, you should allow the fear to enable you to take action, but not to stress and worry about. Number 3, feel the fear and do it anyway. Feeling fear is normal. In fact, courageous people fear the most fear. If you don't fear any fear, then you're not courageous, you're a psycho. So feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like a bungee jump. When you stand on the edge of that cliff, I can guarantee you're going to get butterflies. I don't care who you are. So it's okay. You feel it and go, yes, thank you, and jump, because there's nothing more empowering than feeling the fear and doing it anyway. You shouldn't ever try to stop your feelings. Your feelings are there for a reason. They're there to tell you something. But you, as the awareness of that feeling, can decide on whether it's appropriate or not. Self-talk to the hormones. So the hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that create the jittery, the heart, the worry, the sweat on the palms, are signals from your body that it would like you to observe something. Now your body's trying to get your attention. For example, it could be the attention that someone with a trench coat and a machete is coming your way, and your body's saying, well, I've noticed this, I want you to notice, so I'm going to create all these fear and flight responses. Now, when you notice that that person is simply walking over to some sugarcane to cut it, you can actually acknowledge, go, listen, internally you can acknowledge, I feel really fearful right now, but it's okay because ultimately this is not going to hurt me. And your body quite often will just stop the signals because it realizes that you've responded to its stimulus, which is all it ever wanted to do. It doesn't want to freak you out, it doesn't want to scare you, it doesn't want you age prematurely. It just wants you to take notice, and once you've taken notice, then you can move on. What does fear stand for? False evidence appearing real. That's not true, but Les Brown, I believe, came up with that. False evidence appearing real. Isn't that true? False, generally, it's a construct of your head. Evidence, the stuff you keep thinking about, appears real, so therefore you stress out. Mark Twain used to always say, I've been through some horrible, difficult, challenging things in my life, and a few of them actually happened. Isn't that the truth? Breathe. When you breathe, you do two things. You activate the parasympathetic system of your brain, which is the stress reduction system, which is why meditation is all about breathing. That's why when you see someone meditate, they don't jump up and get into a fight. They're always quite relaxed because they've been breathing, and external breath really creates that. And finally, when you're connected to your breath, you're present. It's hard to think about breathing and thinking about your tax bill, or think about the electricity bill or the petrol bill. Second to last way to get over fear is you know deeply that you will die, therefore there's nothing to fear. You will die, therefore worried about things about trying new adventures, getting on airplanes because you're worried it might crash. Well, yes, it might crash, and yes, lightning might hit you right now, and there will be a way that you'll die, and you don't know what it is, therefore there is nothing really to fear. And finally, a story once told to me, and when it's seen in its correct light, it's really important. If you could imagine for a second, I wrote an article on this quite a while ago, you have this protective bubble around you, and this protective bubble is your life force, and your life force will end one day. How it ends, I don't know. Let's say you get hit by a bus when you're 60 years old. From the day you're born to the age of 60, that protective bubble will keep you alive. If there's, if you have a lot of near misses, you'll get sick, but you won't die because you cannot die before your time. It's impossible. Therefore, you are invincible before you die. You are unkillable before you die, because when your time comes, it will come. But everything before that, you will be living. Snoopy once said, I think it was Charlie Brown once said to Snoopy, one day we're going to die, Snoopy. And Snoopy said, yes, that is absolutely true, but not today. Think about that. You will die, but not today. Therefore, death is just a thought concept, nothing to fear. This is all something to think about. Fear, at its very core, is not real, but the effects are so real. I see so many people's lives derailed by things that will never happen. Think about if any of these things are affecting you, and think about how you can change it. And as we move on, I can't wait to see you till tomorrow. Goodbye.